Hi everyone. Welcome to our probably, hopefully, maybe last video in terms of Q&A. So I think we've got 3 more questions that we're going to go through, and we're going to answer those questions. And thank you to everyone who's been following us, who's been watching those videos and asking questions and giving us feedback. We really appreciate it. So you can pick the first one.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so do you guys have the same similar spiritual backgrounds? Okay, so yes, definitely we have to have the same spiritual background. Otherwise, we wouldn't be together, because what I believe, I wouldn't even call it a belief, but what my lifestyle is, who I am, the core of who I am is my Christian life, and the core of everything that I am is not just my Christian life, but my Christian life in detail, in terms of things that we've talked about, like celibacy, but even down to the nitty-gritties, because when you now become a family, you have to make Christian decisions for yourselves as a family. So issues like tithing, issues about fasting, issues about which day of the week do you go to church, all of those things are really, really important, and you need to be in agreement, because if you're not in agreement, when you get married and when you have kids, it's going to be important. You need to all be on the same page, because you need to know what to teach kids. It's not going to just fix each other itself. It's not going to fix itself down the road. Like if someone is a Sabbath and they go to church, is a seventh day and they go to church on Saturdays, and you go to church on Sundays, and you think it's going to fix itself, it's not.
Yeah.
And if you think it's okay when you're married and you go on Sunday, he goes on Saturday, whatever, that's fine. Or you both go on Saturday and you both go on Sunday. But the thing is, when you have kids, what are you going to teach your kids, or what would you like your kids to do? So those things are very important. They may not seem important now, but they will be important once you get married, and they'll be even more important once you have kids. So you definitely have to have the same spiritual background, spiritual beliefs, because we've seen it. Like, a lot of people say they're Christian, but there's different levels of Christianity. Let's just be honest. There's different levels of what you believe is living a Christian lifestyle, and you need to be with someone who is on the same page with you down to the T when it comes to your spiritual background. Because also, like, there's stuff like when you need to get together to pray for your family, whether or not you believe in deliverance or speaking in tongues, things like that. It's very important, because you need to be in agreement in that. When you decide to meet someone and have your family and stuff, if you decide, this is how we pray, we need to push for our family, we need to pray, this is how we pray, this is how we push, this is how we go before God. You need to be on the same page, because if you're not on the same page, you're really going to struggle, and sometimes you'll end up finding yourself being the one who's carrying the family spiritually, and you don't want to be that person. You will burn out very fast.
Yeah, that's true. You've covered quite a lot of very important discussion points. But also, spiritual background doesn't have to be that you were raised in that church and that I was raised in that church. I also see it from the fact that you have to have the same understanding of what is it that is important in your Christian life going forward. So I think you touched on concepts of tithing, concepts of giving, concepts of serving in ministry. It's things that you have to have been exposed to growing up, that you actually have an understanding what that means, and the demand that it might have on your life and on your marriage. So it's something that's very important to be aligned when you start, and just get an understanding of where your person is spiritually from a background perspective. It's also not a bad thing if someone is a new Christian or a new believer. They could actually learn quickly, depending on which ministry you guys are planted in. So there's always an opportunity for people that grew up not being in a Christian-based family, that don't have a strong spiritual background, but they are actually catching up with their walk with God and strengthening their belief system. So it's an important point to actually discuss, and it's an important point to be aligned in right from the start.
Yep. Agreed.
Right.
Next question. Did you guys pray together? I don't know, did or do.
Did. So did would assume when we were dating.
Dating, yeah.
And do would assume if we were still doing it now. So did. Yes, we prayed together. We actually set up a few important dates from when we decided that this is what we want to do. So we obviously had milestones that we needed to catch up, that we needed to achieve by specific dates, and we would set aside time to pray for those. I remember, I think 2 or 3 nights before our wedding, we actually kind of went and did like a small midnight prayer at one of the churches, the facility that we had access to. So right from the start, we've created a culture of praying together, firstly as boyfriend and girlfriend, and then as husband and wife. It makes it easier when in instances when life happens, because it's easier to go on your knees next to your partner and not feel anything in the world, but just connect with God, not even thinking that my girlfriend or my wife is going to laugh at my tongues, or they're going to laugh at how I pray. So it's very critical that it's something that you start doing right from the onset, so that as you go on in life, you kind of become aligned.
Yeah. What he said, I don't think there's much else to add to that. Yeah, we did pray together from day one. We did, because praying was his culture, praying was my culture.
Yeah.
You know, from day one, he used to call me he still does, God's daughter, because we have the same father.
Yeah.
So it's who we are. That's what we do. Prayer is everything. It was everything for him, and it was everything for me. So there was just no situation, and it still is.
Yeah.
And there was just no situation that especially something as big as dating and getting married, where we would not include prayer, because that's the core. That's the core. That's talking to God. That's talking to our Father. That's the core of everything.
Yeah.
And it's the core of who he is. It's the core of who I am. So us coming together means we have to pray together. We have to pray together. We pray as individuals, and we pray as a family.
As corporate, yeah.
It's, that is non-negotiable.
And if the relationship that you are in is intentional, which it's supposed to be, you need to make prayer the premise of that relationship. You need to make prayer the premise of your would-be marriage. So anything that you guys have to do before you consult anyway, speaking to God then becomes the first thing that you have to do. So I think it just echoes that same sentiment that prayer is ultimately important, and the sooner you start praying together, where 2 or 3 are gathered and are touching as to one thing, God is involved in it. So there's power in that corporate prayer, and the sooner you start it, the better.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Our last question: how did you manage to abstain till marriage? We should have started with this one.
You saved the best for the last.
Okay, I'll just add 2 minutes.
Okay. You have to be very practical about your plans. So it's like a domino effect. It starts with intentional dating. You know that this is the person that you want to marry. You set a timeline to say, we're going to court for, 6 months or whatever it is your timeline is. If you are African, you've got processes that you need to go and do. You need to go and do Rora, which is in Shona, in Lobola, in Ndebele, and other.
Not those other processes.
And then after that, then you have your Christian wedding. So I found that the first phase of getting to Rora was the less tricky one, because you still realize that this is still my girlfriend or my fiance at the time. After Rora, you are customarily married, so she is my wife. That is the most trickiest point, because if you take too long between that process and your Christian wedding, a lot could go wrong. So what we then did in our walk was we made sure that that time frame was limited to as limited as we could make it. And you need to have accountable partners. You need to have people that you will walk with in this journey, that you will then speak to, because you are a human being, you're made of flesh, you are bound to be tempted. So it's easier if you've got people that are around you who stand with the principles of God, that when you face something that you're not sure of how to address, you go speak to an accountable brother, you go speak to a pastor, you go speak to someone that you know who is premised on God and will give you good advice. But the best thing that you just need to do is be practical. Don't prolong this, because you kind of already know that this is the person that you want to be with. So why are you taking all that extra time? And also the thing is, once you've set up dates, you kind of know, well, it's 6 months to go, or whatever the time is. It's a year to go. And after that, I've got this person for the rest of my life as my wife. So it kind of makes it easier if you think of it like that. Well, that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't have much to add, because as women, I don't think it's that much of a challenge. I think the challenge for most people, on the women's side, would be to tell him no. So, but if you actually meet someone that you are really aligned with, then it's really not so hard. And like what he's saying is that most of the time when you're struggling with someone who's not interested or doesn't want to entertain the idea of being celibate, it's because he doesn't have a timeline, or you guys don't have a timeline. You're just winging it. Yeah. You don't know when you're actually going to get married. So, and for me, sometimes that's actually a red flag, because to me, that means, okay, so you've got no plans to actually marry me. You can't even wait, because you don't have a timeline, like you'd like to marry me by such and such. So we can wait until such and such. And after that, like you said, we've got the rest of our lives. So I think timelines are important. That's the goal, is timelines. And honestly, a lot of times people look for ways for stuff to be sugar coated and for things to be made palatable to them, and there's no such. That's what God has mandained, and that's what God has said you must do, and just do it.
Correct.
Do it. The world is a lot of times tries to convince us, or to think that things should be easy. They should just be so easy. But I mean, you just have to be disciplined. Be disciplined and hold yourself accountable. This is what God requires from us, and that's what you're going to do.
Correct.
Like, that's just what it is. And yeah, I think we're way over in time.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for your support. I think we're done for the Q&A. I'm not sure what our next video is going to be on,
okay,
or if it's going to be my video, but we'll definitely keep you posted and let you know what we're up to. So yeah.